I will not receive this.
This establishment requires that you're formally dressed. It's a black tie affair.
So let's move on to a story on the top of the page of the Daily Nation. Senators beat retreat in row over county cash. And this has been a developing story. President Uhuru Kenyatta finally has his way with Senate drops the push to increase revenue for devolution units, unlocking stalemate. I saw this coming. Did you, Mark?
I am surprised that the senators have caved in, actually, and I'll tell you why. Because for them, it was a do or die. And it was a do or die because their whole issue was they had, was it 23 bills that they had said that these bills were passed without the participation of Senate. Now, what this means for them moving forward is that the National Assembly will now continue to pass bills without Senate. Now, it might be a good thing for senators because now you get a free ride. You know, you get government security and things like that, and then you really don't have a job. Your job is to just approve the appropriations bill when it comes to your desk. So it's a good thing for counties that now they can move forward. For Senate, I don't know. I don't know why we have a Senate now, given that they've caved in so easily.
Yeah, and
they should have let, let me tell you, if they wanted this stand to work, they should have let the pinch bite a bit more.
Yeah, they were scared probably of the grinding to a halt that they were expecting of county.
Think about it, the counties needing to pay salaries, needing to pay bills, and nothing coming through for the last 2-3 months. You would see why you get to a place where you're like, half loaf is better than none. And you could see from the faces of the senators during the press conference, they were very crestfallen, but they felt cornered. Yes. And you could hear it in the voice of Murkomen when he was saying, you know what, that's why we need a constitutional amendment so that we can make sure we get adequate. It's almost like a schoolboy,
annoyed.
We should never have to be in this situation again. Yeah. And for me, I feel his pain because when you look at it, the National Assembly sometimes can lord it over the rest of us. Right. How do you come to a situation where people in the counties are waiting for services, but you just decide, by the way, this is how we are going to operate. This is what we are going to give you, and there's nothing to be heard about it.
Right.
Let's come to a place also as a people to demand more of our leaders. I mean, when you look in the UK and other places where people write to their MPs and tell them, you know what, we are here, we are watching, you are going to come back for votes. In Kenya, I think we also need to develop that culture where we talk directly to our MPs and tell them, we are watching you, we are seeing what people are doing.
Deliver.
And remember, your term is expiring in the next 2.5 years. Guess where you're coming back? Because sometimes I think members of the National Assembly forget that they have a mandate from us. And that money that's coming to the county is coming back to us.
Yes, and also we forget we have the power to actually make them behave.
The pick here is with the Senate. Personally, this particular Senate hasn't lived up to its expectations. And it is on that note that I do support the Punguza Mizigo initiative. If at all we are to retain the Senate, then we should upgrade it to the upper house with veto powers over the National Assembly. So far, they have been crying foul that the National Assembly is passing bills without their involvement, yet they're just there sitting. The other day, Orengo and Honorable Murkomen were with the president as he was signing a bill. Then the next morning they wake up and complain that the bill was, they didn't have their concurrence. To begin with, Senate never had the mandate to make to give an input as to the division of revenue bill allocation, this particular bill. The simple reason being that it is a money bill. I fault the High Court or the Supreme Court for the advisory opinion that the division of revenue bill is an ordinary bill and therefore should have a concurrence of both houses. It is such rulings that have tied our nation into a knot. Exactly. And I'll repeat this again. The courts ought to place a boundary as to their areas of jurisdiction. There are areas in which they don't have the requisite competence to appraise the matter before them. Take, for instance, the issue to do with affordable housing. It is now been tied down in the National Assembly, in the courts, for almost a year. It will be another 2 years before it is determined. What then? The president's term will have ended. Another person will come to power, and we will never get the affordable houses.
Yeah.
I commend Maraga and the team for having referred the matter back when it was put before them by the Council of Governors to both the senators and the Assembly to resolve. We have to realize that we have very limited resources.
Yeah.
I commend the national government for having doubled the revenue allocation to the counties to 30% instead of the bare minimum of 15%. I want our governors to put this money to proper use.
Yes.
They should generate their own, I mean, it's 10 years down the line. They should have, by now, have created their own revenue streams.
Exactly.
But they are wholly dependent. In fact, even some of the biggest counties are wholly dependent on
forever sucking at
yes,
the tits
on,
of the
on
national,
the national treasury. Yet they are not charging parking fees. Go to some of these towns, you can leave your car in the middle of the road. Nobody will bother with it because they only look to the national treasury to get money. Yet there are so many ways they can facilitate their people to trade. They can then tax these people, create their own revenue streams, and become truly independent.
Yeah, and we have the resources
yes,
for
if we are to talk about real devolution,
yes,
then there would be no decentralization unless these units can truly sustain themselves.
I agree, and
But
that
our
is the
units are
yeah.
too small to be economically viable. They
Really?
still need
Yes.
the national government injection, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, it
If you
should
look
be
at some of these
supplementary, I
counties,
think.
Even if they collected every single coin in the county and put it
But
to use, it still wouldn't be
that's
enough.
fundamentally the reason I think 47 is too many
It's
counties
too many.
for us.
That's for
And
sure.
that's why we need to probably reduce them to
Rethink.
25. But that will cause trouble because we did what the white man and the colonialists did
Yeah.
years before when they came into
Scrambled
Kenya.
the
They
partition of Kenya.
delineated this country along ethnic lines.
Yes.
And the counties came and did just
that.
So that you know the Pokots have their own county and the Luos have their own counties, so
Right.
much that if you come to my county in Migori, we have to extend a favor to the couriers because we can live without them, and that causes that disenfranchisement. And
Yeah.
Kisis have their own county, and
yeah.
Kikuyus have their own county. So the county system, the devolution structure, the way it was structured, just continued to mess up,
Yeah.
mess us up with this problem. But on this issue of the Senate, backtracking, listen, this is not a battle settled. This is a war postponed.
Okay.
They have backtracked, but again in future, unless there is, a law that sets the mandate of all these organizations, the Commission for Revenue Allocation, the Senate's involvement in, budgetary allocation, parliamentary involvement in the same, until there is that set bar,
Yes.
and until someone sets that legal framework with finality, I guarantee you, next year, we will be at the same spot. All right? So it is good that the senators have said, all right, let's be sane because counties have ground to a halt. People have not had their salaries. And it now looks like we are in a fist fight. But there are fundamental issues that need to be addressed in that. Once the Constitution charges the Commission for Revenue Allocation, for example, with setting the amount, and then it gives Parliament, the same Constitution gives Parliament the powers to allocate budget for devolution. These are at cross purposes, and the Senate is also, so there has to be concurrence with the Senate. And if the Senate doesn't concur, and then the Supreme Court runs away from what it ought to solve, it becomes one whole mess. So yes, it's good for now, but I can guarantee you that unless we sort it out entirely and put proper structures and frameworks to deal with this in future, then it will count for naught.
Yeah, and
Just allow me to say that when we were framing the Constitution, we sabotaged devolution, and I'll tell you why. If you just look at healthcare alone, which is a devolved function, and then you say that despite everything that counties are supposed to do, the minimum you're going to set is 15%. Against what? Against
the
what?
previous budget.
Yeah, no, but still of the previous budget. Think about it.
Previous audited, the last audited budget.
I'm just talking about one devolved function, healthcare, right? And then you're saying that you are putting of the previous, not budget, revenue received by government, right? Which in this country is almost half of the budget, right? You want to say that to do your devolved function, you need at least 15%.
Yeah.
You cannot assign those tasks and then give 15%. This is akin to going to a place and buying a 3-piece high-end suit from Oxford and wanting to pay 3,000 shillings for it. It cannot work. One of the things that we must address is this. Number one, we made counties too small without proper due regard of how much of resource can be gathered from that place. Let's not forget that there are many counties in arid and semi-arid regions. You might build all the roads there and all the train networks you want there. It will not result in an economic boom because there is not enough resource there. So you need to figure out how you're going to strengthen such counties so that they're able to stand on their own 2 feet. And if you do not do that, and if you are doing a referendum, this is what we need to do a referendum about. We also need to figure out what will attract business away from Nairobi CBD to Kiambu. The only way you can do that is if the tax regime in Kiambu is more favorable than that in Nairobi, which is not happening because VAT is the same, payee is the same, it's all the same across the counties. So they're not competing. There is no reason why a business should say, you know what, I am going to save 300 million if I relocate my business to Kakamega. Because the cost of doing business in Nairobi and Kakamega is the same. So if counties are not given the ability to say that they can vary the tax burden based on where they are and the kind of investment they're willing to attract, it cannot work. But why didn't we do this? Because we are completely scared of strong counties in this country. That's the reality.
But which also then lends to the problem I have with Magal saying that he supports Punguza Mzigo. Because the person who is now saying we Punguza Mizigo, which looks very good from the superficially. No, superficially it looks good, but it's not tenable. You're not going to tell me that the whole of Nairobi County will have 2 representatives, that it's one constituency and we'll have 2 representatives. That's also not tenable. The person who now spearheads Punguza Mzigo was the secretary to the committee of experts drafting the constitution. He is the man who, once the commissioners have sat and agreed, he would go, ensure it is captured in the form agreed, and submit it back for concurrence. He then had an opportunity at that point to contribute to the commissioners because of his legal background and expertise. And he's my good friend. I know he will not feel good when I say this, but Ekuru is my personal friend. But to propose some of these things when you had the opportunity, it's like Trix coming to tell us that I don't like what is happening at KTN 5 years when she has left, when she had the chance on this show to host Sensible Humans. Now she will go and complain that KTN does not host Sensible Humans a year after she has left. It doesn't make sense. So, superficially, Punguza Mizigo may look good and it is populist, but you scratch beneath the surface to fundamental issues, you will not agree with them on the propositions beyond them just wanting to make a political statement that they have outdone the establishment.
My